Pirate games haven't really had anything to write home about in recent times. Skull and Bones needing to delay until 2024 means that the last noteworthy release was a decade ago, which also happens to be arguably the best pirate game of all time. I'm talking, of course, about Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Some of the old Pirates of the Caribbean games are dotted somewhere in between 1990s Monkey Island and the disaster we like to call Atlas. Pirate games have been either too sporadic in release or have never really hit the mark. And that's where the topic of today's video comes into it. Take the open world exploration of Black Flag, throw in a beautiful and diverse map, Jack Sparrow, and maybe even a Kraken, and you're left with a piracy masterpiece in the form of Sea of Thieves. Despite a great announcement trailer, when Sea of Thieves first came about, it didn't really put the wind in my sails for whatever reason. But it's been a few years now since I first set sail, and the game has come a long way since then, mostly for the better. Something I became aware of when playing Sea of Thieves for the first time was that as soon as you complete the maiden voyage, the game doesn't really give you any indication as to what you should do first. And that's both a good and a bad thing. It's good because that's the game's way of telling you the world is yours to explore at your own pace, but it's bad because this game lives on Game Pass, and if someone plays without knowing what they're in for, they might just think it's a bad game and never come back to it. One of the first things I did when starting out, aside from crashing into islands and getting obliterated by erupting volcanoes, was check out some of the tall tales. And this was about when I realised there was magic within Sea of Thieves. And I'm not talking Wingardium Leviosa. I'm talking magic in the sense of those wow moments. If my memory serves me correctly, the first tale that you're able to get stuck into is one called the Shroud Breaker, which is good, but my personal favourite was Wild Rose. Now, I'm going to touch on this briefly, because I don't want to ruin it for anyone that hasn't yet completed this. But essentially, it's based around two lovers that are due to marry within a few days, when both of them go missing, and your job is to investigate and get to the bottom of this mystery. The tall tales are all of that nature, honestly. They take you on these really cool adventures around the world where you encounter different puzzles and systems, and even when you're a few parts deep into a series of tall tales such as A Pirate's Life, Rare has still managed to keep the experiences fresh and engaging, which for a sandbox game is a huge win. And I want to talk about A Pirate's Life. I can't think of a better way of checkmating any would-be competitors than introducing none other than Captain Jack Sparrow, Gibbs, and into your world. Again, no spoilers in case anyone hasn't checked out the Pirate's Life series, but the gist is, Captain Jack's gotten himself into a pickle, where once again he finds himself armed, only with a bone, versus a stubborn dog that's in possession of the keys to his cell.
Get me to board us! Defend the ship, or all is lost!
And what do you suggest I defend her with, mate? I forgot to bring the bone!
Moving on to the art style. It's really unique, and it's one of the aspects of the game that Rare nailed from the get-go. One of the first things you notice while sailing around is the dynamic weather effects and how beautiful they look. From high waves and choppy seas, to a shroud of dense fog, full-blown storms, sunsets and sunrises. The aesthetics of the game are stunning, and if I had to have one complaint, it's gotta just be the HDR. It's not very clear to me how to get the game to run in HDR and get a good colour balance. For me, the colours are either too washed out or far too dark, but this might just be a combination of a number of settings I have in place that aren't agreeing with the game. Now, one great thing about Sea of Thieves that really gives it some flavour is the fact that there's other players and crews sharing the world with you. The maximum number of ships on one server is ever fluctuating, but I believe the maximum amount of players you can have per server is 16, and that number can be made up of 3 different ship types, those being the sloop, the brigantine and the galleon. It's a really cool wildcard after all. This is a pirate game, so anything you're doing, be it earning yourself loot or taking on a voyage, you can be attacked at any point by another set of players, and that loot, should you have any, can be stolen. It ultimately means that whatever plans you have in place can turn on a dime in any second. So you really have to think about the parking of your ship strategically in positions where it's a little more hidden or angled so that you can drop sails and take off at a moment's notice. For me, PvP is kind of where Sea of Thieves needs a little bit of work doing. And it's mostly because a lot of the factors that have diversified that experience over the years have now been removed. Strategy is a big part of Sea of Thieves PvP. There's a few ways to board a ship, for example, but the conventional way to do it is to use one of the 2 ladders that are located on either side of the ship. Being able to take advantage of situations such as a high wave to board an enemy ship via the harpoon, that makes a big difference. And the issue with the lack of diversity in PvP and the removal of some of those features is that there's really been no innovation in that area at all, and that's a problem for players, especially when the game's supposed to be sandbox and then they start restricting functions to conventional ways rather than, the fun way. After all, pirates are crafty and creative, so it's important that any decisions that are made in regards to PvP, and PvE for that matter, take that into consideration. Rare have recently introduced a new, slightly controversial game mode called Safer Seas, and Safer Seas is basically a private server where you can sail solo or up to 3 friends without any of the crews on the server. If you have an hour to kill and you don't want to adventure or run through a tall tale with the worry of another crew coming at you, then this is kind of where you want to be. There are some markdowns here though. You'll receive a significant decrease in reputation and gold earned, and Rare have released a full guide outlining these differences between the now named High Seas and Safer Seas. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still plenty of room for creativity in the realms of PvP and PvE as it currently stands, but it definitely needs some time pouring into that area to bring it up to speed with the rest of the game. Which brings me nicely onto PvE. Early in the game, you'll discover the different trading companies you can work with. I believe there's 8 in total, and I won't go through them all now, but the main few I interacted with were Gold Hoarders, the Order of Souls, Merchant Alliance, and the Hunter's Call. They each give you various types of tasks that you can carry out, and each of them usually give you different types of treasure that you can sell back to that company for gold and reputation. You can continue to increase these reputations up to a maximum level of 75. Once you hit level 50 and at least 3 of them, you earn the title of Pirate Legend, which more or less just tells everyone else that you're as addicted to the game as they are. But it does open up some cool endgame content that's considered suitable for more experienced pirates, and this really awesome hideout that exists underneath every tavern in the game, which you can only open by playing a secret song that only Pirate Legends know. The first time I saw this, I was blown away. This is a really good example of the magic that I mentioned earlier that exists in Sea of Thieves. The downside of a lot of these activities is that once you've done them a few times, they start to become tedious and repetitive. And other than the grind and the rewards you receive along the way, there's no other real incentive to do them. In today's world where some of the most amazing games to date are being created and worked on by much smaller studios than Rare, these smaller studios have utilised procedural generation not only for landscapes but also for in-game content such as quests. So the list of acceptable reasons for repetitive content in games in this day and age is getting smaller by the day. To their credit, the team at Rare are very creative and everything they do is handcrafted, which means that more often than not, the content that is implemented within the game hits the high standard that they're aiming for. But anything that needs reputation to increase levels really could do with diversifying whatever it is you need to do. Anyone that grew up playing RuneScape can understand the level of determination or maybe illness that it takes to persist in these types of game environments. Most players, I imagine though, will just acknowledge the grind and then refuse to do it. Moving away from PvE, the map is amazing. There's 4 regions within the map, and they are the Ancient Isles, the Devil's Roar, the Shores of Plenty, and the Wilds. All the islands in these regions look kind of different. The water and skybox changes dynamically for each of these two. Ancient Isles is rumoured to be inspired by the Indiana Jones movies, with ancient ruins living amongst the jungle-style islands. The Shores of Plenty typically consist of beautiful azure blue waters and white sandy beaches. Then the darker parts of the map, like the Wilds, that are down and out islands with no NPCs on them at all, except for a few skeletons and a lot of dead pirates. I've got a soft spot for the Devil's Roar though. This place is volcanic, and it's considered dangerous for new pirates to go there. Occasionally the volcanoes here will erupt, spitting huge chunks of lava into the sky. This is of course a threat to your ship, because they hit like cannibals and set everything on fire. It also heats up the sea, so if you jump in or fall off constantly like I do, you're going to get bored alive. The loot chests you find here look totally different too. They show signs of damage via heat or lava. There's also some uncharted islands that don't appear on the map, which I really liked. There's these cute little seaports that are great to kick back, crack a beer and fish on for a while. There's siren shrines under the water that contain a ton of loot. You can usually spot these by the purple glow on top of the water. I found these really cool, so I recommend checking these out. Aside from that, there's all kinds of forts, outposts, shipwrecks, you name it. The world's alive, and you can get lost in this world for a very long time, and whether you're playing on your own or with friends or family, there's so much fun to be had. Sea of Thieves is one of those rare games that you can make great memories within, that you'll be laughing about for years and years to come. If you made it this far in the video, thank you, I appreciate it. If you want to help me grow this channel, then please subscribe. And if you like the video, hit the like button. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.